Hello and welcome to day 64. Today is a workout day, so check your logs and get ready to crush those old numbers with another day of progressive overload. Now in today's video, I've been getting a lot of questions regarding macronutrients, what they are, what their function is in the body, and how to calculate them. So I thought we would go over that today. What are macronutrients? How can you use them to optimize your bodybuilding progress? So in today's video, we're going to be going over the macronutrients. So what are they? What's their role in the body? And how do they apply to your physique goals? So let's start with what the macronutrients are. So we have three macronutrients in the body, and that is protein, carbohydrate or carbs, and fat. So protein has 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 calories per gram. So a little over double that of protein and carbohydrates. Now this doesn't make fat a bad thing, it just means it is more calorically dense, so it is something you have to keep in mind if you are trying to be in a calorie deficit or lose weight. Now, let's give each of these guys a little color here. So we'll start with protein. I always imagine protein to be kind of a Giga Chad. So he's happy, got his big superhero chin, hunky protein, and his construction hat. That's a terrible construction hat, I know, but now that you know what it is, that's what it is. So protein, the main goal of protein is going to be muscle building, muscle repair, tissue repair, skin, hair, nails, anything like that. Protein is comprised of amino acids, which are basically the building blocks of the different tissues in the body. So that is the main goal of protein. Next we have the carbohydrates. So carbohydrates will make him happy, give him his little sweatband here. Sweating up because carbohydrates are an energy source. It's an easy, quick energy source for the body. And we'll go a little bit more into detail what other roles it plays in the body as well. But as far as its main function as a nutrition, it is going to be energy. Now, let's move into fats. Now, contrary to popular belief, fats do not make you fat. However, an excess of calories does make you fat, which is why you have to be careful because fat is more calorically dense than the other macronutrients. And one of the main nutrition values of fat is hormonal production and different functions of the body, such as the brain, and all of that rely very well on fat. It is an essential nutrient to have in your nutrition regimen. Now let's bring back our guy from a couple videos ago and we'll start going into how the macronutrients play a role in the body. So if you remember from a couple videos ago, we made a video on how muscle building works, and we had Mr. Big Arm. Feel free to name him in the comment section below. We feel like we're going to need a name for him, and he is really intrigued with his big arm. He's really into that. So here he is. Here's his gigantic arm, and he is going to be ingesting these macronutrients. So protein. Protein basically is muscle growth and muscle repair as far as bodybuilding purposes. So our guy goes to the gym, he lifts weights, he works out, and as I described in the earlier video, that tears down the muscle tissue and the body's mechanisms get to work using protein to repair and build that muscle tissue. This is why protein is so hallowed in the bodybuilding realm, and everybody preaches that you have to get enough protein because the main goal of bodybuilding is to build big sculpted muscles, and you're not going to be able to do that without enough protein. Good sources of protein are things such as lean meats, chicken, red meat, fish. You can get a lot of protein from eggs, a whey protein powder, dairy products such as cottage cheese and Greek yogurt, and so on. There's also some good vegetarian options for protein if that's your preferred lifestyle, such as lentils and beans, chickpeas, etc. So protein, very important for muscle repair and growth. Protein is essential to the body, so you want to make sure, even if you're not bodybuilding, that you are getting a good amount of protein. I believe the typical recommended amount is to get at least 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight for just basic optimal living function purposes. Now for bodybuilding, I recommend getting at least 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, you would aim for at least 200 grams of protein. Now, moving into the carbohydrates, what is their role in bodybuilding? So as we already touched on, carbohydrates are a source of energy. So that's why if our guy here, he doesn't look like he runs, he has no legs. I suppose some marathon runners have no legs too. But anyway, if he's going to go for a run, do a marathon, that's why all runners carb load before doing a long race, because that gives them a good source of energy and a sustainable source of energy throughout their run until they run out of carbohydrates. Oftentimes, runners will even bring quick sources of carbohydrates such as Gatorades or little sugar beans with them to replenish the carbohydrates for energy along their run. Now, carbohydrates also work in the muscles themselves as muscle glycogen. So muscle glycogen is basically stored carbohydrates and water in the muscle, which are responsible for muscle contractions and muscle function. So when you go into the gym to lift weights, your body relies on that glycogen to contract the muscles and to give them the energy throughout the workout. So as you continue to lift weights, your glycogen levels are going to deplete and slowly go down. And this is where, if you are doing a longer, more intense workout, intra-workout nutrition can be beneficial. Just a simple source of carbs to replenish that glycogen and replenish that energy as you're going along. This is also why a lot of bodybuilders tend to load most of their carbohydrates before and after the workout during the day. Before the workout, you have the carbohydrates for energy, you're filling up the muscle glycogen so you have a great pump in the gym. And then after the workout, when your carbohydrate source is depleted, the muscle glycogen is depleted, you have more carbohydrates to replenish that and allow the muscles to focus on growing. Another side benefit of carbohydrates post-workout is when you do ingest carbohydrates, your pancreas, something in your body, releases insulin. And that insulin shuttles nutrients around as needed. So your body needs protein after the workout to rebuild and repair. By ingesting carbohydrates with that protein and releasing insulin, that causes the body to shuttle those nutrients that much more rapidly and efficiently to the areas where it needs. Now, is this some sort of magical formula through food? No, not necessarily. Some people preach this as gospel, other people don't believe you need it at all. I fall somewhere in the middle. I do think it's beneficial to ingest carbohydrates post-workout, and that's part reason why, but you shouldn't be slamming an entire bag of gummies just to spike your insulin ridiculously through the roof before consuming your protein. So that's the main source of the main functions of carbohydrates. You have your energy, you have muscle glycogen, and that's the reason why you want to consume carbs. Now, carbohydrates are not essential. There's not an essential carbohydrate, though fiber is technically a carbohydrate and is very beneficial for digestion and gut bacteria. So I do not like to cut out all carbohydrates. Now, fat, the last of our macronutrients, is the most calorically dense of the macronutrients, but it is an essential nutrient. You do need to have some forms of fat in your diet just for optimal hormonal production and living in general. And the main function of fat is it is another energy source. So your body can use carbohydrates or fat or a combination of two for energy. The main difference between the two, fat is an essential nutrient. If you cut all fat completely out of your diet, after a while, you will die. If you cut carbohydrates out of your diet, what your body will do is it will take the fats without the carbohydrates and it will go into a state called ketosis, where your body creates ketones that allow it to function for energy, allows your brain to function. This works really well for some people and really terribly for other people. However, the thing about cutting carbohydrates out for too long is carbohydrates are needed for the muscle glycogen. So if you just rely on fat for energy and protein for muscle repair, what will oftentimes happen is the muscles will get what is called flat. And that is where you have the muscle and let's give it a meter here. You've filled it up with carbohydrates. So our levels up here, nice and full. You get great pumps, great energy, great muscle contractions in the gym. Now, once you work out, your carbohydrate levels drop in the muscles and your muscle is a little bit flatter. There's less muscle glycogen in there, less energy reserves, and less ability to get a pump. Now, if you don't replenish those carbohydrates all the way back up to the top, and you continue the workouts through the week, with each workout, your glycogen levels are going to get lower and lower. If you get to the point where you're completely out of muscle glycogen and still trying to train hard, this can result in muscle atrophy, where your muscles are actually going to deflate and decrease in size. If done correctly, this can be a very potent fat loss tool. However, as without glycogen in the body will have to rely more on body fat for energy. When I'm in a muscle gaining program such as we are now with the 12-week blueprint to muscle, I like to keep my glycogen somewhere in between these two levels. So filled up or at least nearly full. Now, something can happen if you eat too many carbohydrates, which is called spilling over. And that's where your muscle glycogen reserves are completely full. There's nowhere else for the carbohydrates to go, so they will spill out into the body. And then that's when those carbohydrates are stored as body fat. So contrary to popular belief and a lot of clickbaity videos, carbohydrates do not make you fat. An excess of carbohydrates that your body is not burning for energy or storing for glycogen is stored as fat, however, and can make you fat. Same thing with fat. Fat does not make you fat. However, an excess of fat, once the amount used for hormonal production is consumed, can be stored as fat. This is especially true if you're consuming a lot of carbohydrates and a lot of fats together at the same time. I do recommend using both macronutrients as they have amazing benefits, each one of them. However, this is why it's so easy to get fat off of super carb and fatty foods like pizza, which has a lot of carbs in the crust, a lot of fat in the cheese and toppings, or donuts, which has a lot of carbs in the sugar, and then a lot of fat because they're fried. These such of foods are hyper palatable, very easy to eat, very delicious, but very fattening foods because they are calorically dense. You are spiking your insulin from the carbs, and it makes it that much easier for the body to store the fat as body fat. So this gives you an idea of the function of all the macronutrients. Your protein is the building blocks of muscle, built for muscle growth and repair. The carbohydrates are a source of energy. They fill up the muscle with glycogen, giving you great pumps, strength, and contraction in the gyms. And the fat is the source for hormonal production and optimal body function, which is key to building muscle and feeling your best. Now, as far as how to fit all these macronutrients in and how many you need, I do include that in the 12-week blueprint to muscle, how to calculate out how much protein, carbohydrates, and fat you should be ingesting for optimal muscle building and maximal results. So those calculations are all in there with the nutrition guide. I also go in detail how to adjust these nutrients as the plan goes along and you continue to make progress. I hope you found that video helpful and informative. And if you have a specific topic you would like me to go over in the future, please let me know in the comments section down below. That's going to wrap it up for today's video. Have a fantastic workout, and I will see you tomorrow.